These are real stories, shared anonymously by people who lived through them. I moved into the apartment because it was cheap, close to my job, and the listing said the roommate was quiet and respectful. At the time, that sounded perfect. I was working long shifts and mostly wanted a place where I could sleep without drama. When I first met Aaron, he seemed normal enough. Thin, pale, soft-spoken, always polite. He barely made eye contact, but I figured he was just introverted. We shook hands, exchanged a few awkward sentences, and that was it. I moved in 2 days later. The apartment itself was small but clean. 2 bedrooms, 1 bathroom, a narrow kitchen, and a living room that smelled faintly of cleaning chemicals. Aaron showed me where everything was, told me to help myself to the kitchen, and reminded me that he worked from home and kept odd hours. That last part didn't bother me. The first week was uneventful, but something felt off. I'd wake up in the middle of the night to faint sounds, soft footsteps, a creak of a chair, a low hum of electronics. I assumed Aaron was just up late working. Every morning when I left for work, he was already awake, sitting at the kitchen table with a cup of coffee that looked untouched. He never seemed tired. Not once did I see him yawn. One night, I came home earlier than usual. The apartment was dark except for the glow under Aaron's bedroom door. I knocked lightly, just to let him know I was home. The light went out instantly. No response. I stood there for a moment, feeling oddly embarrassed, then went to my room. When I turned off my lights, I noticed something strange through the crack under my door. A thin line of light moved slowly across the floor, back and forth, like someone pacing. I told myself it was my imagination, stress, long hours, but the pacing continued almost every night after that. Sometimes it stopped directly in front of my door and stayed there for minutes. I could see the shadow shift like someone leaning closer to listen. I never opened the door. I never called out. I just lay there, barely breathing. Then, my food started disappearing. Not entire meals, just small things. A slice of bread missing, milk slightly lower, leftovers rearranged. When I asked Aaron about it, he smiled softly and said he didn't touch my food. His voice was calm, but his eyes stayed locked on my face, studying my reaction instead of answering. A few days later, I came home and found my bedroom door unlocked. I was sure I'd locked it. Nothing looked stolen, but my bedspread was wrinkled differently and my pillows smelled faintly of that same chemical cleaner from the living room. I confronted Aaron again, more directly. He looked confused and suggested I might be forgetting things because I seemed very tired lately. That comment stuck with me, because I was tired, exhausted. No matter how long I slept, I woke up drained. My dreams became vivid and disturbing. I dreamed of standing in my doorway, watching myself sleep, unable to move or scream. One night, I tested something. Before bed, I placed a small piece of clear tape across the inside of my door frame, low enough not to be obvious. In the morning, the tape was broken. I didn't confront Aaron. I didn't sleep that night. I sat upright in bed with my phone in my hand, pretending to scroll while watching the gap beneath my door. At 3:17 a.m., the light appeared again. It stopped directly in front of my room. I heard breathing, soft, controlled, too close to the door. Then the doorknob slowly began to turn. It stopped when my phone alarm rang. I'd set it on purpose. The footsteps retreated immediately. The next morning, Aaron acted like nothing happened. He asked if I wanted coffee. His mug was still full, untouched. That's when I noticed a small notebook on the kitchen counter, partially hidden under some mail. My name was written on the cover. Inside were pages of notes,
Detailed observations, what time I left for work, what I ate, how long I slept, even comments about my mood. One entry mentioned how deeply I slept on nights when I didn't resist. Another talked about watching from the hallway. I heard Aaron behind me. He didn't yell, he didn't panic, he just looked disappointed. He said I wasn't supposed to find it yet. He said we had an understanding, even if I didn't realize it. Then he said something I'll never forget. You're safest when you're asleep. I left everything behind. Clothes, laptop, personal items. I stayed with a friend and filed a report, but without proof of a crime, nothing happened. Aaron disappeared. The landlord said he moved out abruptly. Sometimes late at night, when I can't sleep, I still imagine that thin line of light under my door, still waiting.
I found the room through a local housing group online. The post was simple, almost boring. 1 spare bedroom, shared bathroom, month-to-month rent. The roommate's name was Daniel. He messaged me back quickly, politely, and asked normal questions. Where I worked, my schedule, whether I smoked. Nothing raised red flags. When I went to see the place, it was clean, quiet, and cheap. Daniel seemed friendly in a restrained way, like someone who had practiced being normal. I signed the agreement that same day. The first month passed without incident. Daniel kept to himself, mostly staying in his room or leaving early in the morning. He never had guests, never played loud music, never caused problems. If anything, he was too considerate. He'd apologize for using the kitchen before me or for showering too long, even when he clearly hadn't. At first, I appreciated it. Then it started to feel strange. It began with small comments, casual observations that felt oddly specific. He'd mention what time I usually woke up, even on days when my alarm didn't go off. He knew which mug I preferred and would leave it clean and waiting on the counter. Once, while I was making dinner, he asked if I was feeling anxious about work because I chopped vegetables faster when I was stressed. I laughed it off, but inside something tightened. I didn't remember ever telling him that. I started noticing that Daniel was always around, but never in the way. If I entered the living room, he'd be leaving it. If I came home late, the lights would already be on. Sometimes I'd hear movement in the hallway at night, but when I opened my door, it would be silent. No footsteps retreating, just silence, like the apartment itself was holding its breath. One evening, I realized something unsettling. I couldn't remember the last time I'd seen Daniel asleep. No matter how early I woke up or how late I stayed up, he was always awake. His door was often open, his room dimly lit, and he'd be sitting at his desk facing the wall. Never the door, never the window, just the wall. Things took a turn when I caught him in my room. I came home unexpectedly early one afternoon after feeling sick at work. The apartment was quiet, too quiet. As I walked toward my bedroom, I noticed the door was slightly open. I was certain I'd closed it. When I pushed it open, Daniel was standing near my closet, holding one of my shirts. He didn't jump or act startled, he just turned slowly and said he was looking for the vacuum. The vacuum was in the hallway closet. We both knew that. I told him not to go into my room again. He apologized immediately, over and over. His voice calmed, but his eyes fixed on my face like he was studying it. That night, I couldn't sleep. I felt exposed, like my space had been violated in a way I couldn't explain. I locked my door and pushed a chair against it, even though I felt ridiculous doing so. The next morning, I found my door unlocked. I confronted him again, angrier this time. Daniel didn't argue. He didn't deny it. He just said I must have forgotten to lock it because I was distracted lately. That word again, distracted. He said it like it was a diagnosis. After that, things got worse fast. Objects in my room would move slightly. My notebook opened different pages, my bed pillow flipped, my phone charger unplugged.
Nothing dramatic enough to prove anything, but enough to make me feel like I was losing control of my own space. I started taking photos before leaving, just to reassure myself. And then one day, I compared the photos to how the room looked when I came home. Something had definitely changed. Late one night, I woke up to the sound of whispering. It was so faint I thought I was dreaming. Then I realized it was coming from outside my door. Daniel's voice, calm, soft, saying my name over and over, like he was rehearsing how it sounded. I didn't move. I didn't breathe. After a while, the whispering stopped. In the morning, he acted completely normal. The breaking point came when I found a folder on the shared computer. I wasn't snooping. I was trying to print a document when I noticed a folder labeled with my initials. Inside were dozens of files, notes, timelines, even audio recordings. He had recorded me talking on the phone, laughing, crying, pacing my room. One file was titled Sleep Patterns, another Emotional Triggers. The most disturbing one was simply called Attachment Progress. I felt sick. When I confronted him, Daniel didn't deny any of it. He told me he was documenting me because he cared. He said understanding someone completely was the purest form of intimacy. He said roommates were just people who hadn't realized yet how connected they were supposed to be. His voice never raised. He never threatened me. That was somehow worse. That night, I packed a bag and planned to leave while he was in the shower. As I reached the front door, I heard him behind me. He wasn't angry. He sounded hurt. He said leaving suddenly could be dangerous for someone like me because I didn't handle change well. Then he told me he'd been practicing my voice just in case anyone asked questions. I ran. I stayed with friends, changed my number, and never returned to that apartment. Later, I found out Daniel had been reported before by previous roommates. Similar stories. No charges, no consequences. He kept moving, finding new people, new roommates. Even now, years later, I still hesitate before sharing a space with anyone. Because sometimes the scariest thing isn't being watched. It's being studied.
When I moved in, I thought I'd gotten lucky. The apartment was spacious for the price, clean, and in a quiet part of the city. The lease was already in place, and I'd be sharing it with one other person, Mark. He was a few years older than me, worked nights at a logistics company, and barely spoke during the walkthrough. He wasn't rude, just distant. At the time, that felt ideal. I didn't want a friend. I wanted peace. The first few weeks were normal. We crossed paths occasionally in the kitchen, exchanged short conversations about bills or trash days, and then retreated into our separate routines. Mark was meticulous about shared spaces. The bathroom was always spotless. The mirror never had water spots. The trash was taken out before it was even half full. I remember thinking how rare it was to have a roommate who actually respected boundaries. That illusion didn't last. I started noticing that the bathroom felt different when I used it after Mark. Not dirty, not messy, just wrong. The shower curtain would be pulled back slightly more than I remembered. My toothbrush would be turned at a different angle in the cup. The cabinet under the sink would sometimes be left open a few inches. These were tiny things, the kind you dismiss because admitting they matter feels paranoid. Then the smells started. At first, it was faint, a sour, metallic scent that lingered in the bathroom long after Mark had showered. I assumed it was some new soap or cleaning product. When I asked him about it casually, he said he didn't use anything scented. He smiled when he said it, but his eyes didn't move. They stayed locked on my face like he was waiting for something specific from me. One night, I woke up needing to use the bathroom. The hallway light was off, but the bathroom door was open. The light inside was on. I froze. I was sure I'd turned it off before bed. I stood there listening, heart pounding, but there were no sounds. No shower, no footsteps, just the low hum of the vent fan,
running on its own. I shut the light off and went back to bed, telling myself Mark probably forgot. That explanation didn't help me sleep. After that, the bathroom light was off and on when I woke up. Sometimes the mirror would be fogged even though no one was inside. Once, I found the shower running on cold, the water pooling silently around the drain. When I asked Mark about it the next morning, he frowned slightly and said he hadn't used the shower since before his shift. He said it in a way that suggested the conversation itself confused him. Things escalated when I found hair in the sink. It wasn't mine. It was longer, darker, wet even though the sink was dry. It was coiled neatly near the drain, like someone had placed it there deliberately. I threw it away and washed my hands longer than necessary, trying to scrub away the feeling crawling up my arms. That same day, I realized something worse. My bedroom door had been locked. I never locked it, not once since moving in. But when I turned the handle, it wouldn't budge. I stood there staring at it, convinced I was misremembering something basic about my own habits. When I finally got it open, nothing inside looked disturbed except my laundry basket. The clothes were folded, not badly, not neatly, just handled.
I confronted Mark that evening. I didn't accuse him outright. I asked if he'd been in my room by mistake. His reaction was subtle but immediate. His shoulders stiffened, his breathing slowed. He said no, calmly, then added that he didn't like going into other people's spaces. He said privacy was important to him. The way he said it felt rehearsed. That night, I couldn't sleep. Around 2 a.m., I heard the bathroom door open. Then the light clicked on. Then the sound of water, not the shower, but the sink, running steadily. Minutes passed, then more minutes. The water didn't stop. I got out of bed and opened my door slowly. The hallway was dim, the bathroom lights spilling out across the floor. Mark was standing at the sink facing the mirror. He didn't turn when he heard me. His hands were submerged under the running water. I asked his name softly. He smiled at the mirror, not at me. I went back to my room and locked it for the first time since moving in. The next morning, I noticed red marks on my towel, small ones, rust-colored. When I checked the trash, I found used bandages wrapped carefully in tissue. When I asked Mark if he was okay, he said he'd nicked himself shaving. He said it quickly, like the answer didn't matter. Over the next week, I felt like I was unraveling. The bathroom mirror was wiped clean every morning, even when I knew I'd left streaks. The vent fan would turn on by itself. Once, while brushing my teeth, I realized the mirror was warm to the touch. That made no sense. Mirrors don't get warm. The final straw came when I checked my phone. I had photos I didn't remember taking, blurry ones. The bathroom, the hallway, the outside of my bedroom door. One video was taken at night. In it, the bathroom light was on. The camera moved closer, slowly, like someone walking carefully. Then the video ended abruptly, as if whoever was recording had stopped suddenly. The timestamp was 3:41 a.m. I was asleep at that time. I confronted Mark for the last time that evening. I showed him the photos, the video. I asked him if he'd touched my phone. He watched the screen silently, his expression unreadable. When I finished, he handed the phone back to me and said something that made my blood run cold. "You don't remember most nights." I asked him what he meant. He said I slept deeper than anyone he'd ever met. He said sometimes I'd wander into the bathroom without waking fully. He said sometimes I'd just stand there, staring at the mirror, unmoving for long periods of time. He said he was worried about me, said he was trying to keep me safe. I didn't believe him, but doubt crept in anyway. Had I been sleepwalking? Could I really not remember? That night, I set up my laptop to record. I aimed it at my bedroom door and left it running. I didn't sleep much. Around 4 a.m., I heard movement in the hallway. Soft footsteps. The bathroom light turned on. Then my doorknob moved. In the morning, I checked the footage. The video showed my door opening slowly. Mark stepped inside, barefoot. He stood there for a long time, just watching me sleep. Then he turned and left. Minutes later, I followed him on the recording.
My body moved stiffly, unnaturally. My eyes were open but unfocused. I walked into the bathroom. Mark followed. He stood behind me as I stared into the mirror. He reached out and touched my shoulder. I flinched in my sleep watching it. I left that day. I didn't pack. I didn't say goodbye. I went straight to the police with the footage. They took a statement. They said they'd look into it. By the time they visited the apartment, Mark was gone. His room was empty. The bathroom was spotless. Too spotless. I still can't use shared bathrooms without feeling sick. I still avoid mirrors late at night because sometimes when the room is quiet, I remember how calm he was. And I wonder how many nights we shared that bathroom before I ever knew I wasn't alone.